Hello and welcome to the 8th week of our content writing workshop. This is the end of your journey, and I hope you have learned a lot along the way. I hope you have practiced how to write the different kinds of content available online and whatever you will need to do as a content writer. The more you practice, the better it will be for you. And I want to believe that you have been practicing. So in today's lecture, we are going to focus on the last but the most important aspect of content writing, and that is proofreading and editing. How can you make sure that your content is up to the mark after writing it? I have said it earlier in this course that the best way to go forward after writing is to take a break for an hour or 2 hours and then revisit your content with a fresh mind, because sometimes we tend not to see our own mistakes as we write, but taking some time away from it helps us spot the issues when we revisit the content. So today we are going to talk about how to proofread your work, the importance of proofreading your work, some softwares and tools that we can use. I will address the issue of plagiarism and its consequences, how you can deal with clients and the feedbacks, good or bad, mostly bad of course. Sometimes when they're good feedbacks, we don't really take it in a bad sense, but negative feedback can affect most of us emotionally and mentally to a very large extent, especially the new writers out there. I've been there, I've done that, so I can relate to that problem, and I believe that is one of the reasons why most of you are taking this course. But anyhow, today you will figure out what is lacking in your content after writing an awesome copy and still you get a negative feedback. And I will also talk about revisions in content writing and what actual scenario happens when we have revisions, what is the reason for the revision and how you can deal with it. So getting back to our topic today, as you can see in my introduction, I have mentioned that most of the time people use terms like editing and proofreading as one thing, but they're actually separate things. Editing, it actually means making changes to the document, and proofreading means reading it once more, focusing on certain aspects of the content, not necessarily making changes to the content but fixing some technicalities. Proofreading means reading the content and isolating the issues, and editing means fixing the issues you find while proofreading. I have broken it down in steps here. So I would advise you to open your copy, any copy you've written recently, and follow these steps to understand what happens as you implement it. The first thing you need to do while editing and proofreading your work is do it after a break. Take a break, like I said, move away from the content, give your eyes a break, give your hands and your mind a break, because sometimes when we write something, we have a memory of it in our mind, and while proofreading we tend to read what might not already be there, because our mind has been programmed to assume it is there, and this way we do not see our mistakes. Keep the text at some distance. Do not put your face into the screen to find the issues. Don't magnify the screen too big. It will not show you your flaws at all. Okay, in fact, the closer it is to your eyes, you might tend not to read it properly. Okay, the third point is make sure all the paragraphs are connected and in a great flow. Make sure all the subheadings are in a great flow. If you remember earlier in this lecture, in these workshops, we talked about planning your content. So plan the paragraphs, plan the subheadings. If you have SEO writing requirements, make sure you have fulfilled all the SEO requirements which I explained with detail in the relevant lecture. Alter the text and font size or even the style to trick your mind to think it is unfamiliar work. This is a trick that most of my colleagues use, because of course everybody is different. Some things work for me, some things don't work for them. So that's why I decided to add this, because it works for some people. You can change the fonts, change the size of the fonts, and let your mind believe it's something different. You have never seen it before, and you will be surprised at how effective this strategy can be. Do you prefer editing and proofreading on the PC or in a printout? Some people prefer to have a printout, so print it out if you can. Work in a quiet place with no distractions. turn off the music, turn off the television, turn off any social events you're having around you. Just isolate yourself, be in a silent place and work. Don't rush it, because if you rush the editing, you will definitely not see the issues. Make sure the title and the batch and the content match. Make sure the content fulfills the client's requirements as specified. Using keywords and mentioning the highlights, add the links, and check the word limit. Make sure you fulfill all these requirements. Make sure the setting of the Microsoft Word are set to grammar and style, and all the checkboxes are ticked. I have explained in this here in the steps what to do. Go to File, go to Options, go to Proofing, enable the reading stats, proofread, and writing style settings. Go to these, follow these steps there, and make sure you have all these enabled. The comma should always be should be checked always. Make sure that the punctuations are always inside. There should be a spacing of 1. After that, check all the boxes you specifically want to untick depending on your needs. Make sure the language setting is appropriate according to the client's needs. If you're writing for a US based client, make sure that you choose the right language in the Microsoft Word file that you're using. If it is a UK based client, make sure you stick to UK English, because there are different standards in both cases. There are different spellings in both cases. Turn on the track changes option in the review tab in Microsoft Word. You have to do this as a proofreading step, so that whatever changes you make can be highlighted with a different font. After making the changes, keep a separate copy for the final delivery to the client. Always store the edited version, because you can always share it with someone you might be training, or as proof of your work that you edited it. You can send it to the relevant person who might be requesting for it later on. If not, it always stays with you as a copy to learn from. Another step while proofreading your document is to press F7 to check the readability stats. I will go through all these steps in just a bit. Let's get to the theoretical part and understand what we are talking about. Check the first readability to make sure it matches the grades according to the target audience. This is a very important step. Most people do not take seriously, but you should, if you want to make sure your copy is excellent. First readability is actually a readability formula that even tools like Grammarly uses. It follows a simple mathematical formula, and this is it. The reading ease is equal to 206.835 minus 1.015 multiplied by the average sentence length, and you subtract it by the product of 84.6 times the average number of syllables per word. So this is of course the computer automatically calculates all of this. This is just an explanation of what is going on and why it is important. Based on all this calculation, if you have a French readability score of between 90 and 100, it is easily understandable by the average 5th grader. That means it is very, very simplified. It has a lot of readability. A score between 60 and 70 is considered easily understood by 8th and 9th graders. A score of 0 and 30 is considered easily understood by college graduates. So depending on your target audience, these are the measurements of the readability stats you should follow. Okay, this is something you should keep in mind. Importance of proofreading your work. When done meticulously, proofreading can make a huge difference in your writing. It can help you communicate the message more successfully to the intended reader. Sometimes in the process of writing, we all make mistakes. You can read this part and try to understand why editing is very, very important. As always, I mentioned it before also, dot your I's and cross your T's. Do not make silly mistakes and awkward sentences in your content. Pay attention to every detail. And make sure your grammar and English is nice. If you have a problem with English, then of course it will be difficult for you to produce high quality content. So make sure you first of all work on improving your English. Software and tools to use. Microsoft Word in itself is a very good tool if you can do these settings I've mentioned above and learn how to implement them in your content. Aside from that, Grammarly, install the free version of Grammarly and you're set to work with good results. You should also be able to use tools like Word Web, because it suggests synonyms and it helps give vocabulary words, and if you can use them in the right way, you can write very meaningful sentences. Grammarly and Word with these settings can improve consistency and prevents spelling issues because it can easily proofread your content. Some tools that I've recommended are Grammarly, Perfectit, Ginger. You can go to their websites and use these free tools. Some of them are paid, so if you're willing to pay, that's even better. Now let me explain these settings that I have mentioned and a bit about the Felshed readability stats. For example, this is the Word file of this lecture note. You go to File, you go to Options, hit the proofing option here, tick all of these, go to Settings, set it on Grammar and Style or Grammar and Recommendations depending on which Microsoft Word you are using. You go to Settings, and this is what I mentioned in the file. The comma should always be inside. You should check for commas always. It should be, the quote should always be inside. And the space between sentences should be one space. I always tick all of these. You don't necessarily have to tick them all. It's up to you. If you're a blog writer, then you can untick this because that means you will be using first person a lot. If the option is there, untick it. If you are an article writer, then of course you should tick this to prevent writing in first person. And then of course make sure these are not ticked. Say OK, and you have to say this. These are the general settings. Then you have to go here and check it to recheck the document. After you've made a setting, recheck the document and say yes. And this is what happens. It will highlight the issues. As you can see here, it's telling me okay, now that I've done the proofreading part, what happens is I hit F7 so that it shows me the issues and it will suggest corrections wherever necessary. It's telling me to fragment it. I don't want to fragment it because I'm writing lecture notes, but if it is an article, you will have to fix this sentence, add some proper English to it, not just starting a sentence with example. I will ignore this for now. As you can see, it's highlighting the issue that it is in passive voice. If you are using Grammarly, if you are a Grammarly user, you will realize that this issue comes up with Grammarly as well, and using this setting in Microsoft Word helps you highlight the passives and fix them immediately. So make sure you fix it if you see it in your file. For now I will just ignore it. This is also important according to my lecture, so I'll ignore it. This is all okay. Ignore. Passive again, I want to ignore it. Ignore. When you are proofreading your content, of course, if it is a problem with your work, you will have to fix it. For this video, I am just ignoring all of these because that is how I wanted the notes to be. This is what happens at the end. It tells you that the spelling and grammar check is complete, and then you say OK. Now this is where you get a summary of the passives. There's a 2% passive voice in this. This is still fair enough, but I would recommend trying to make sure there is none. First readability ease here is 64. Now if you can refer back to my notes, as you can see here, it said the first readability score between 60 and 70 is ideal for 8th and 9th graders. This is fair enough, especially because my lecture notes are open for everybody, even if you're just an A-level graduate. It's fine. The beauty of my courses is that it's for everyone, so this is quite satisfactory for me. And the Felshed need grade level is 7.3. That means people in 7th grade can also read the content. It suits me. It's fine. Simple enough. So this is what these settings help you find out and evaluate your content and make it better. So that is all for now, and I hope you put this to practice. And if you have any questions and concerns, if you cannot get through this properly, feel free to message me and I'll help you out. Have a nice time, and make sure you complete the exercise at the end of this lecture, because to get the certificate for this course you need to qualify. Thank you for your time and all the best.